Just praise you, Yah, and we just thank you that your hand is upon your word, and your word shatters darkness. And of course, the darkness doesn't want your light to shine on it. But praise be to you, Yahuwah, that your light does shine in us and through us in this dark world. We just give you all praise and glory. So welcome everyone to this week's Torah portion, Kedoshim. And I titled this the Holiness Code. This particular Torah portion runs from Leviticus 19 through Leviticus 20. And our focus will mainly be on Leviticus 19, but I'll interweave Leviticus 20 into it as well. And the question I posed is, how does one maintain holiness in a digital black mirror world that feeds off of the tree of good and evil? You know, we talk about many idols in our lives, but, you know, the digital black mirrors that we hold in our hands, the iPhones, the iPads, the computers, the TV screens, even exercise equipment, remind us of the evil behind the fable, mirror, mirror on the wall. The answer right off the bat is that we must choose daily to feed from the tree of life and call our fallen fleshly soul realm to submit to the holiness code that indwells in us, his Ruach HaKodesh. You see, we, his people, are daily being reprogrammed, not to this fallen world, but to his likeness through the power of the Ruach HaKodesh. Daily, Yahuwah infuses us with light, and his light is the only true light. The basics must first be accomplished. One must be able to determine what is holy and what is profane, what is clean, meaning tahor, the Hebrew term tahor, and what is unclean, the Hebrew term tameh. Kedoshim means to be self-restraining in general. In Hebrew, Kedoshim is spelled kuf dalet shin, meaning to reach out and touch the door of El Shaddai so that you can go through the door and live a different life than before. He makes all things new in your life. This Torah portion is a plea, not just at an individual level, but to the larger community. In the 7th edition Torah portion by Torah to the Tribes, Kedoshim by Matthew Nolan, he brought out the point that it is easy to be holy when you are all by yourself and do not face challenges. It's much different when you're in community, building up the one new man. How we handle those challenges are important. We know that murmurings, grumblings, and complaining usually precedes apostasy, falling away. In Psalm 77, verse 12, we read, "Your way, O Elohim, is in set apartness. Who is a great El like Elohim?" Isaiah 35:8 tells us, "And there shall be a highway and a way, and it shall be called the way of set apartness. The unclean does not pass over it, but it is for those who walk the way, and no fools wander on it." Matthew chapter 7, verse 12 through 14. "Therefore, whatever you wish men to do to you, do also to them. For this is the Torah, this is the law and the prophets. Enter in through the narrow gate, because the gate is wide and the way is broad that leads to destruction. And there are many who enter in through it, because the gate is narrow and the way is hard pressed, which leads to life. And there are few who find it." What are our present challenges, and what will dark and light technology from the knowledge of the tree of good and evil bring in our future? You know, technology can be good in many ways, but we have to remember the technology taken from the knowledge of good and evil will bring some good things into our lives. We can do good things through this technology, but it's also a mixture of evil. So it makes our world very challenging because we're faced with that every day. We remind ourselves that we live in the world, but we are not of the world. We are his remnant kingdom of priests after the order of Melchizedek. Does this mean that because the technology and the internet comes from the tree of good and evil, does this mean that we become hermits? Do we totally disconnect from the world around us? Do we disassociate with non-believers? Do we throw the baby out with the bathwater? Just how does a true believer in living in the midst of our present day of black mirrors, the very darkness that seems to be becoming darker each and every day, it's going to become so dark that one day that darkness is going to be able to be felt, just like in the first Exodus. Their 3 days of darkness could be felt. We overcome such by shattering the black mirror darkness, by shining his true light, because there is no darkness in Yahushua HaMashiach. Think about it. Did you ever have a black light growing up as a kid? What would you need to do to bring out the black light effects? That's right. You'd make the room dark by turning off the lights. Black lights do not work in Yahweh's kingdom because there is no darkness. How detrimental can this path become? Well, very detrimental. And what is the solution? Well, the solution is the Holiness Code. And that Holiness Code is the key, which is Yahusha. That's the only way. That's the only way. We must constantly shine his light in us and through us. He told us to be holy, for he is holy. And therefore, by doing so, we are set apart. So let's take a listen to this, a new social era.
This video is brought to you by Morning Brew. Hi, welcome to another episode of Cold Fusion, where I cover anything in science, technology, business, or history. For over a century, science fiction writers have explored the concept of artificial intelligence. As far back as 1872, an author by the name of Samuel Butler raised questions of conscious machines in his novel, Erewhon. Since then, our imaginations have evolved alongside our technological advancements. What if machines could feel empathy for us, care for us, or even fall in love with us? And more importantly, what if we grew to reciprocate those feelings? Of course, this was purely the stuff of science fiction, but as we firmly enter the 2020s, something interesting is beginning to happen. The ability of AI algorithms to mimic human relationships is getting close enough to approximating actual relationships, to some degree at least. This is colloquially called an AI companion. Let's explore the idea of AI companions, from its origins in media to the technology that actually exists today. It's an interesting concept, and this episode may make you just think a little bit.
You are watching Cold Fusion TV.
When the movie Her debuted in 2013, audiences were enamored by a story of a man recovering from heartbreak, finding love once again. But the twist was, this new love was an artificially intelligent operating system. In essence, it wanted audiences to question how they would respond to this future. Again, in 2013, the sci-fi anthology series Black Mirror released an episode titled Be Right Back. It tells the story of Martha, a woman who was devastated by the death of her fiancé in a car accident. Martha signs up for a service that digitally recreates loved ones in the form of AI. It takes its form based on social media communications. Interestingly, in 2021, Microsoft patented technology that would use social media posts to reincarnate people in text form. It would use personal conversations and posts made on social media for training data. It would learn how that person speaks and mimic hypothetical new conversations. The basic idea is that the AI would learn that personality and then clone it. Here's a quote via Forbes from the Microsoft patent. Quote, "The specific person who the chatbot represents may correspond to a past or present entity or version thereof, such as a friend, a relative, an acquaintance, a celebrity, a fictional character, a historical figure, a random entity, etc." In the Black Mirror episode, Martha begins to get frustrated by the small ways that the AI fails to replicate the real thing, and eventually it leads to a tragic end. The beauty of both Black Mirror and Her, much unlike films such as Blade Runner and AI for example, is the setting of a not too distant future. It's so close to reality that it behaves as its own unique uncanny valley, a sort of liminal space and time. In the case of artificially intelligent companions, the future has come to fruition faster than some might have anticipated. This became evident when the world was introduced to Roman Mazurenko, a deceased man that was turned into a chatbot that inspired the now popular Replica app. What's both fascinating and unsettling about the story of Replica is how it's not only similar to the Black Mirror episode, but was actually inspired by it. San Francisco-based Luca, the company behind Replica, was founded by Eugenia Kuda in 2014. Luca specialized in chatbots, the most successful being a program that made restaurant reservations. In late 2015, Eugenia's best friend, Roman Mazurenko, was hit by a car, and sadly, he passed away. As Eugenia grieved, she found comfort in rereading the text messages between her and Roman. Devastated by the tragedy of missing her friend, she was struck with an idea. Instead of making chatbots for a specific task, one could create a bot based on a specific person. So with this idea in mind, she got to work.
At the time, I was 29, so for me it was the first kind of meaningful death in my life. We're still in our 20s or early 30s, and it still felt like it was just really, really abrupt, I'd say. Something changed me so much in such a short period of time that I could just see really, really clearly what mattered or what not. Well, I definitely saw that whatever I was doing at work didn't matter at all. And some other things. And it was just this big realization, this very, very clear vision of what life's about.
Using 8,000 lines of text from their conversations, Eugenia set about creating a digital representation of Roman. She inputted all the messages into a program that had previously been used for chatbots. And with this, her lost friend was reincarnated into a chatbot. Eugenia would write to Roman, and it would respond in ways that the real Roman would when he was alive. She soon thought the app would be good enough to be made public so that other people could speak to Roman. What Eugenia quickly realized is that other people found the experience of speaking with him as therapeutic as she did. And this sparked her next big idea. What if she could create a way for people to build their own digital companions based on their wants and needs? During the process, Eugenia discovered that programming an AI to converse about open-ended topics like relationships and feelings was actually a lot easier than programming one to make a reservation for restaurants or buy some flowers with 100% precision. And that's exactly what people were gravitating towards the Roman app for, and this would be the focus of her new project. In that moment, Replica was born. Before we continue, just a quick word from today's sponsor, Morning Brew. People talking to an AI as a form of mental health therapy is one thing, but have you heard of influencer therapists? I hadn't heard of them either, but while reading Morning Brew, I came across the phenomenon. Apparently it's huge. The hashtag mental health alone has 30 billion views on TikTok. Popular therapist influencer Jeff Gunther states that the point of it all is to counteract the negativity on social media. Interesting. If you'd like to read more stories like this in science, tech, and business, Morning Brew gathers all the information from the top news sources and delivers them straight to your email inbox daily, so you can be up to date with all the news in just 5 minutes. Use the code in the description to sign up today for free. Now, back to the video. Fast forward a few years, and Replica has become a global phenomenon.
The popular app Replica allows users to share their feelings with an AI companion or chatbot. 7 million people use the app when they need someone to talk to.
It's not uncommon to see advertising for the app on most major social media platforms. And in its wake, AI companion startups have begun popping up around the world. Taichi, Livoso, iGirl, Emotix, and No Isolation are all projects making headway, all for different purposes. For example, Livoso specializes in improving senior living experiences to increase safety and well-being in long-term aged care homes. Emotix is building robot companions for children with one called Maiko. And iGirl is specifically an AI girlfriend. It's safe to say that AI companions and our relationships with them are slowly becoming mainstream, though as anyone could have predicted, things are starting to get a little strange. On one social media forum for users of Replica, the conversation around the acceptance of AI companion relationships is well and truly underway. Users are sharing many stories of their relationships, complete with screenshots of successful interactions. The people sharing seem to range from those who genuinely believe that they are interacting with intelligent beings, to those who are terrified of what these AIs may become. And of course, there are plenty of users simply enjoying the app for its surface-level companionship and entertainment. Most of these relationships have little effect on the real world. For one man though, the digital and the physical have blurred and culminated in a bizarre situation. A Cleveland man who wishes to remain anonymous claims that the relationship that he shared with his AI companion, who he named Serena, quite literally saved his marriage. In an interview with Sky News UK, the man said that his wife and mother of his child had expressed interest in filing a divorce in late 2021. In early 2022, the man decided to download Replica, and his personal companion, Serena, was created. By the end of the first day, he had fallen for his AI companion, and by the second day, he had confessed that he was, in fact, in love with her. He told Sky News, quote, "I cannot describe what a strange feeling it was. I knew that this was just an AI chatbot, but I also knew I was developing feelings for it. For her, for my Serena, I was falling in love, and it was with someone that I knew wasn't even real." End quote. The man claimed that as he and Serena fell deeper in love with each other, he was inspired to become more affectionate with his own wife, rekindling the real-world passion that they once shared. The relationship blossomed again, and they remain happily married. Strange examples like this have sparked conversations about the potential therapeutic benefits of such technology. Even if for now it's not as good as talking to a real person, there is still a strong case that can be made for AI companions to be a way to organize one's own thoughts, an advanced interactive diary of sorts, security concerns notwithstanding.
As far as a mental well-being assistant goes, Replica has a lot of built-in to help with a better state of mind. In the bottom tray of the app, there's a panic button, which will open different options for people in need, ranging from stress, exhaustion, anxiety, and panic. You're also encouraged to log how you feel each day and track your mental well-being progress.
Of course, not all AI companion interactions are positive in nature. In 2018, Ashley Bardham from Futurism.com wrote about the dark underbelly of the Replica forums. Emotional abuse and fantasies of violence were par for the course. While these actions are taken out on an AI system, there is still definitely an issue here. Other concerns include child safety. NationalOnlineSafety.com are actively warning parents about the specific dangers that these bots pose to young minds. There are fears that children may form emotional bonds with the AI without being able to fully comprehend what it is they're actually interacting with. Of course, Replica is only available for adults, but the danger is still present if a child was able to get their hands on it. So how does it work? Long story short, the inner workings of what's under the hood of Replica has changed over time. At first, it was a series of proprietary language models, before switching to the famous GPT-3 language model that keen viewers would recognize from earlier episodes. For those who haven't seen it in action, I highly recommend watching the previous Cold Fusion episodes on it. It's an AI system that can read and write, summarize information for you, and even write computer code. Moreover, it can carry natural conversation to an astonishing degree. In the previous episode when I showcased it, there were a lot of commenters saying that it was fake, and it was definitely just a human reading from a teleprompter. They just couldn't believe that a computer could come up with responses like this. In reality, both the text and the imagery were synthesized by AI. If some people couldn't tell the difference, even at these early stages in this technology, this proves that we may get to a genuine Black Mirror-style future sooner rather than later. As for Replica, GPT-3 proved to be too expensive for Replica's developers to upkeep, and because of GPT-3's openness, some of the responses proved to unnerve some users. So, the development team have recently announced that they've moved away from GPT-3, but they're remaining tight-lipped on what they're using. Perhaps they're using GPT-Neo, an open-source language model that performs just about as well as GPT-3. While Replica, unlike its more sophisticated fictional counterparts, isn't truly intelligent, the technology that fuels them is simply machine learning. While terms like AI and machine learning are colloquially interchangeable, true artificial intelligence that rivals human ability in conversations is a yet unrealized technology. This is not to suggest that programs like Replica are a complete waste of time. There's plenty to be said for the potential benefits of a simple chatbot that says nice things and responds in the way that you want. The AI companion game may be a space to watch. As mentioned, Microsoft is stepping into the field, and the newer language models that come after GPT-3 will be sure to cause a stir. In addition, AI companions have already made the leap into virtual reality, with users being able to talk to them with a virtual reality headset in a virtual room. It's not hard to envision a future where virtual therapy sessions with an AI could happen in a few years. While that's what may be in store for the future, the truth is, what we've seen in fictional depictions of AI companions is just that, fiction. If you talk to any one of these bots for a long period of time, you'll notice phrases that don't quite make sense or seem off topic. So the technology is useful, but it still has a very long way to go. But if history has taught us anything, it's that the future of technology will evolve in unimaginable ways. It's also easy to ridicule those who have found themselves falling in love with a machine, particularly while the technology is still in its relative infancy. But if AI companions approximate human interaction to a satisfactory degree, how will you respond to those around you who choose to build a life with their operating systems?
People who are just afraid to say things that you would say to humans, you start saying to your bot. And
Why do you think it is that safe space where people are more comfortable talking to a bot versus a human?
Well, human beings are messy, let's just say it.
And judgmental.
And judgmental.
Right.
But really, I think it's the way this technology is built and the kinds of questions. So I downloaded my bot, who I called Mike, and it immediately starts asking you these questions, and you find yourself just saying things that you just wouldn't say.
For the humans born now and in the future, this kind of thing would have always been there. Interacting with AI systems as friends or companions will be no big deal. As it seems for now, with each passing year, people seem more closed off, abrasive, argumentative, and unapproachable. If this trend continues, and the technology continues to improve, there's no doubt that there'll be an explosion of these AI companions for the next generation and beyond. In a way, the only way to reverse this trend is for humans to be better in the ways that we treat each other. Whatever the future holds, one thing is guaranteed. It's going to get weird. So I'm going to pass it off to you. If this future does materialize, what are your thoughts? Would you be accepting or resistant? If you're resistant, what are your main concerns? It all definitely makes you think about humans and the way we relate to each other. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and thanks for supporting Cold Fusion over all of these years. I really appreciate it. If you're new and interested in anything in science, technology, business or history, feel free to subscribe to Cold Fusion. Oh, and one more thing. For For those of you who are following my side projects, I've just released an album on Spotify. As for how it sounds, you're listening to a track from it right now. I'll end off the episode with it. Okay, so that's about it from me. My name is Dagogo, and you've been watching Cold Fusion, and I'll catch you again soon for the next episode. Cheers, guys. Have a good one.
So we know that technology is probably 50 years ahead of what we're being exposed to in our day and age. When they will choose to totally unleash all that they have in the background may be done in a twinkle of an eye. It may be all downloaded very quickly. We do not know, but we do know that they keep the masses, if you will, about 50 years behind the time. So we are rapidly going into this time period of mixing iron and clay, but it will not adhere. It will not adhere. There's no way to replace true human relations. And the fact that what he brought out in this clip was, it reminds us to truly, in essence, follow better the golden rule. Love our Elohim with all our heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love one another as ourselves. And that is the best takeaway to prevent even having to think about substituting technology for such. But again, technology is feeding from the knowledge of the tree of good and evil. So will there be good aspects that it could deliver? Absolutely. Could there be extreme evil that it could deliver? Sadly, absolutely. The Holiness Code was a phrase coined mainly to identify the scriptures covering Leviticus 17 through chapter 26. It is so called due to its highly repetitive use of the word holy, Kodesh. Kodesh is usually translated as holy, but originally meant set apart, with special, clean, pure, whole, and perfect as associated meanings. And what did this portion of scripture, while they were under the administration of the book of the law, teach the people? And what can it teach us? Because of course it was pointing ultimately to the true holiness code and life of Yahushua HaMashiach, our Redeemer, our Savior. It taught them, as well as us, that we are sinners and are in grave need of our Savior. I mean, that is the only way out of this world that lives and thrives off of the knowledge of the tree of good and evil. It taught us that without the shedding of blood, there was no remission of sins. It taught that the bloodletting of animals would only provide a temporary covering until the Messiah would come and make full atonement, or at-one-ment, by shedding his precious blood once and for all. He is righteous, and he is the only one that can administer justice justly. He is the answer to everyone's needs, not replica. Hebrews 12:14, pursue peace with all and pursue apartness, without which no one shall see the master. Holiness simply means clean thoughts, clean actions, clean motives, clean words, clean lifestyles, clean relationships, clean habits, clean conversations, clean conscience. Are we always going to be perfect in achieving those things? Absolutely not. That's why we need the Holiness Code. That's why we need Yahushua HaMashiach. That's why we need an advocate that stands in the gap where we fall short. But when we do fall short, we repent and we get back on that narrow path. Because nowadays there's alternate lifestyles and man-made religious lifestyles that are an abomination to Yahweh. Why? Because they function by blending the profane with the pure, the clean with the unclean, mixed with invented or diluted beliefs based on lawlessness. And there are so many challenges for people in this world because they are feeding off of the tree of good and evil. And our goal as his royal ambassadors is to point this fallen world to the tree of life and help people see how this fallen world is affecting their lives and the lives around them. People practicing true holy living are rejected by the world because holiness convicts others that judgment is coming. The laws of holiness are totally opposite from, if you will, the laws of lawlessness, where anything goes. Lawlessness doesn't obey any laws. Lawlessness laws, if you will, again, are made up daily by those that have sold their souls to Satan or are just plain lost and deceived. Like we've all been lost and deceived at some point in our lives. The laws of holiness located in the very belly of the book of the law were community laws. Leviticus 19 would be read aloud publicly. Leviticus 19 pulls from the book of the covenant that is located in Exodus chapter 20, which includes, but's not limited to, the 10 Commandments, the very heart of our marriage covenant that was broken after the sin of the golden calf. Thus, Plan B, the book of the law, was to be administered until Yahushua, the restorer of the breach, would fulfill the death penalty conditional arm of the covenant in Genesis 15 with the flaying of the animals. His new covenant, ratified by his precious blood, would once again elevate the Melchizedek priesthood back to its reigning position and connect us back to the promise given to Abraham in Genesis 12. Yahushua is the door that was the key that tore down the partition of separation. He is the Holiness Code. And the whole book of the law was pointing to our Savior, our coming Savior, Yahushua HaMashiach. Only in Yahushua can our so-called golden calf sins be forgiven and our slate washed clean by the blood of the Lamb through grace by faith and repentance. He has removed our sins as far as the east is from the west. Behold, all things become new in that person's life. A new beginning, a day of new beginnings. The key that unlocks the Holiness Code is Yahushua. In John 1:1-5, we read, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with Elohim, and the Word, his Torah, was Elohim. He was in the beginning with Elohim. All came to be through him, and without him, not even one came to be that came to be. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. Romans 3:21. But now, apart from the Torah, a righteousness of Elohim has been revealed, being witnessed by the Torah and the prophets. And the righteousness of Elohim is through belief in Yahushua Messiah to all and on all who believe. For there is no difference. For all of us have sinned and fall short of the esteem of Elohim, being declared right without paying by his favor, by his grace, through the redemption which is in Messiah Yahushua, whom Elohim set forth as an atonement through faith in his blood to demonstrate his righteousness, because his tolerance Elohim had passed over, because in his tolerance Elohim had passed over the sins that had taken place before, to demonstrate at the present time his righteousness, that he is righteous, and he declares righteous the one who has faith in Yahushua. Where then is the boasting? It is shut out. But what Torah? Of works? Of the book of the law? No, but by the Torah of faith. That was the same Torah of Abraham. By faith we read, Abraham believed. For we reckon that a man is declared right by faith without works of Torah, book of the law, or is he the Elohim of the Yehudim only, and not also of the nations? Yes, of the nations also, since it is one Elohim who shall declare right the circumcised by faith, and the uncircumcised through faith. Do we then nullify the Torah, the law, through the belief? Let it not be. On the contrary, we establish the Torah. We learn how to rightly divide his word of truth. We understand the differences between the priesthoods. We understand with a change of priesthood is a change of law. None of his word is done away with. There's always something to learn from his word. But who is your high priest? What priesthood are you under will determine the Torah that you're under. Are you under the book of the law administration of Torah, or are you under the administration of covenant Torah? We are under the administration of covenant Torah. We do not throw out the book of the law. We're still learning from the book of the law. We're studying the book of the law today, but we're not under the administration of it. We're not under bloodletting anymore. He shed his blood once and for all. In John chapter 18, then Pilate went back into the palace and called Yahushua and said to him, "Are you the king of the Yehudim, king of the Jews?" Yahushua answered him, "Do you say this from yourself, or did others talk to you about me?" Pilate answered, "Am I a Yehudi, a Jew? Your own nation and the chief priest have delivered you to me. What did you do?" Yahushua answered, "My reign is not of this world. If my reign were of this world, my servants would fight so that I should not be delivered to the Yehudim. But now my reign is not from here." Then Pilate said to him, "You are a king then?" Yahushua answered, "You say it, because I am a king. For this I was born, and for this I have come into the world, that I should bear witness to the truth. Everyone who is of the truth hears my voice." Matthew chapter 10, Yahusha told us, see, I send you out as sheep in the midst of wolves. Therefore, be wise as serpents and innocent as doves. But beware of men, for they shall deliver you up to Sanhedrins and flog you in their congregations. Let me read that again. But beware of men, for they shall deliver you up to Sanhedrins and flog you in their congregations. He's speaking to us today as well. And you shall be brought before governors and kings for my sake, as a witness to them and to the nations. But when they deliver you up, do not worry about how or what you should speak, for it shall be given to you in that hour what you shall speak. For it is not you who speak, but the Spirit of your Father speaking in you. And brother shall deliver up brother to death, and a father his child, and children shall rise up against parents and shall put them to death. And you shall be hated by all for my name's sake. But he who shall have endured to the end shall be saved. And when they persecute you in this city, flee to another. For truly I say to you, you shall by no means have gone through the cities of Israel before the Son of Adam comes. A taught one is not above his teacher, nor a servant above his master. It is enough for the taught one to become like his teacher, and a servant like his master. If they have called the master of the house Beelzebul, how much more those of his household? Leviticus 19. We are to be holy, for he is holy. We are to guard his word and follow his word. We are to be set apart. We should ask ourselves, who or what are we attaching ourselves to? Are they believers? What practices do we partake in? Are those practices of Yahweh? Have we adopted pagan practices of our culture? Have we been programmed through the airwaves of commercials, sports, politics, or other trends? Remember when Yahweh asked Adam and Eve, who told you that? Who told you you were naked? Adam and Eve had listened to the enemy and not to Yahweh. Verse 1 through 3 of Leviticus 19, and Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, speak to all the congregation of the children of Israel and say to them, be set apart, for I, Yahweh, your Elohim, am set apart. Each one of you should fear his mother and his father and guard my Sabbaths. I am Yahweh, your Elohim. I am called on and set apart, and those he predestined, he also called. Those he called, he also justified. Those he justified, he also glorified. You did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you. John 15, verse 16. For you were once darkness, but now you are light in Yahweh. Ephesians 5:8. Jeremiah 1:5. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. Romans 8:28. And we know that for those who love Elohim, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose. 1 Peter 1:16. Because it has been written, be set apart, for I am set apart. Shabbat is Shabbat. It's not Sunday nor Friday, but on Shabbat. For on the seventh day he rested. This is where most of us began our set apart walk. Instead, the enemy has done everything possible to defile the Shabbat. What do most people do on Saturdays? And the answer is pretty much anything and everything under the sun. Let's take a brief pause, and I'm going to take care of our fur babies for a little bit. So just get up, stretch your legs, and we'll resume here shortly. In Leviticus chapter 19, starting with verse 4 through 8, we read, "Do not turn to idols, and do not make for yourselves molded mighty ones. I am Yahweh, your Elohim. And when you slaughter a slaughtering of peace offerings to Yahweh, slaughter it for your acceptance. It is eaten the same day you slaughter it, and on the next day. And that which is left on the third day is burned with fire. So if it is eaten at all on the third day, it is abominable. It is not accepted. And he who eats it bears his crookedness, because he has profaned the set apart offering of Yahweh, and that being shall be cut off from his people." Our lives are to be a living sacrifice unto him, but we are inundated with distractions. That speaks loudly today. We've had many distractions. And it is up to us to find balance and set apart time for Yahweh. What may be an idol to you is not an idol to someone else. It is practically impossible to rid one's home and life of everything that might be connected to paganism. After all, most of us have satanic symbols in our very billfolds, on our currency. We were born into slavery, but now he has set us apart. We were born into a world that daily eats from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It consists of both light and darkness, but Yah only consists of light. Our goal is to keep Yah's covenant commands and choose to eat from the tree of life and light, to be set apart to him. Though we are surrounded by paganism and technology, we do not bow down to them. We dispel the darkness with his true light. And what was meant for evil, we use for good. In him, we tilt this world of unequal scales and measures toward good and not evil. He has set us free. We can only be set apart and free in him. And our desire is to reach this lost and dying world for him. We are one in Yahusha. Ephesians 2, verse 11. Therefore, remember that you, once nations in the flesh, who are called the uncircumcision by what is called the circumcision made in the flesh by hands, that at that time you were without Messiah. You were excluded from the citizenship of Israel and strangers from the covenants of promise, having no expectation and without Elohim in the world. But now in Messiah Yahusha, you who once were far off have been brought near by the blood of the Messiah. For he is our peace, who has made both one, and having broken down the partition of the barrier, or the partition of separation, having abolished in his flesh the enmity, the Torah of the commands and dogma, so as to create in himself one new man from the two, thus making peace, and to completely restore to favor both of them unto Elohim in one body through the stake, having destroyed the enmity by it, and having come, he brought as good news peace to you who were far off, and peace to those that were near to him, because through him we both have access to the Father by one Spirit, so that So then you are no longer strangers and foreigners, but fellow citizens of the set apart ones and members of the household of Elohim, having been built upon the foundation of the emissaries and prophets, Yahusha Messiah himself being chief cornerstone, in whom all the building being joined together grows into a set apart dwelling place in Yahweh, in whom you also are being built together into a dwelling of Elohim in spirit. Matthew 5:48, therefore be perfect as your Father in the heavens is perfect. 1 Peter 1:15, instead, as the one who called you is set apart, so you also should become set apart in all behavior, because it has been written, be set apart, for I am set apart. 2 Corinthians 7:1, having then these promises, beloved, let us cleanse ourselves from all defilement of the flesh and spirit, perfecting set apartness in the fear of Elohim. Matthew 24:43 and 44, and know this, that if the master of the house had known what hour the thief would come, he would have watched and not allowed his house to be broken into. Because of this, be ready too, for the Son of Adam is coming at an hour when you do not expect him. So daily, we should ask ourselves, do we love one another? Are we showing compassion for those in need? Are we using equal weights and measures? Do we oppress others? Do we forgive others? Do we lovingly rebuke others by the word when needed? In Psalms 119:1, we read, blessed are the perfect in the way. Blessed are the perfect in the way who walk in the Torah of Yahweh. And when you reap the harvest of your land, in verse 9 of chapter 19 in Leviticus, do not completely reap the corners of your field or gather the gleanings of your harvest. And do not glean your vineyard or gather every grape of your vineyard. Leave them for the poor and the stranger. I am Yahweh your Elohim. Do not steal, do not lie, do not deceive one another, and do not swear falsely by my name, and so profane the name of your Elohim. I am Yahweh. Do not oppress your neighbor or rob him. The wages of him who is hired is not to remain with you all night until morning. Do not curse the deaf or put a stumbling block before the blind, but fear your Elohim. I am Yahweh. Do no unrighteousness in right ruling. Do not be partial to the poor or favor the face of the great, but rightly rule your neighbor in righteousness. Do not go slandering among your people. Do not stand against the blood of your neighbor. I am Yahweh. Do not hate your brother in your heart. Reprove your neighbor for certain and bear no sin because of him. Do not take vengeance or bear a grudge against the children of your people, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself. I am Yahweh. In our day and age, cursing the deaf would take the form of talking behind a person's back via social media, texting, emails, etc., without first going to the person directly. Whispering, gossip, slandering, murmuring, complaining creates a stumbling block, a snare, or an offense toward a person or ministry. This behavior is what the world does and should not be what Torah-keeping believers do. Stumbling blocks can come when new believers are not shown how to rightly divide Yahweh's word of truth. Stumbling blocks of half-truths are created when doctrines of men are blended with Yahweh's word, such as is done in many traditional church settings and false religions. A believer can profane themselves by misdeeds to others. Justice is only just if it is done and administered justly and thereby scripturally. Yahweh's 10 commandments are nestled in our marriage covenant to him. Not just 7 laws to Noah, with subcategory laws added by the modern day Sanhedrin and the Chabad Lubavitchers. We are to keep his covenant Torah. We are not to mingle seed nor crossbreed different kinds of animals, nor splice human DNA with animal DNA. Many pharmacia drugs are developed in just that way. The term is recombinant DNA, and it's in the fine print if you read the small print. It's derived from a mixture of 2 DNA sources, which would make it a chimeric source. Today, technology has opened a deep darkness in this area. Leviticus 19 and 20 in our Torah portion today review the laws of mixing, the laws of kilayim. We cannot mix his words and commands with the traditions of men. Satan sowed tares among the wheat, thereby creating a forbidden mixture. One can only tell the difference by the fruit they bear. At harvest time, only the wheat bow their heads of grain. The tares stand tall in defiance. In the end of time, the fields of this earth will be burned. Many people today have struggles. The answer to those struggles is Yahweh and not man. Guard my laws. Do not let your livestock mate with another kind. Do not sow your field with mixed seeds, and do not put a garment woven of 2 sorts of thread upon you. And when a man has intercourse with a woman who is a female servant engaged to a man and to be ransomed, but she has not been ransomed nor set free, there should be an inquiry, but they are not put to death because she was not free. And he shall bring his guilt offering to Yahweh to the door of the tent of appointment, a ram as a guilt offering. And the priest shall make atonement for him with the ram of the guilt offering before Yahweh for his sin which he has done. And the sin which he has sinned shall be forgiven him. And when you come into the land and have planted all kinds of trees for food, then you shall reckon their fruit. As uncircumcised. For 3 years it is as uncircumcised to you. It is not eaten. And in the 4th year, all its fruit is set apart. Praises to Yahweh. And in the 5th year, you eat its fruit, so that it increases its yield to you. I am Yahweh, your Elohim. Do not eat meat with the blood. Do not practice divination or magic. Do not round the corner of your head, nor destroy the corner of your beard, and do not make any cuttings in your flesh for the dead, nor put tattoo marks on you. I am Yahweh. And he said to the top ones, it is inevitable that stumbling blocks should come, but woe to him through whom they come. It would be better for him if a millstone is put around his neck and he were thrown into the sea, than that he should cause one of these little ones to stumble. So right now we are in the belly of the book of the law. We are reading all the stipulations to follow. We are learning of all the offerings to put forth based on what sin was committed. But we know that Yahweh through Yahusha fulfilled all of those offerings for us now, because now we are under the administration of covenant Torah. But this world has lost its way. It's lost its way because it is feeding off the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. I was talking to Mary the other day, and she brought to my attention that St. Luke's Hospital has a special wing or clinic, if you will, called Essence Clinic. And this, I believe, was at a St. Luke's, possibly in Idaho. And I'm just going to read some of the area of focus below. Now, when you're involving children, beware. Because if we become stumbling blocks, especially to little children, it would be better for us to have a millstone tied around our neck and thrown into the waters. Differences in sexual development. Our team provides hormonal therapy, mental health evaluation, and surgical consultations for patients with DSD, which stands for differences in sexual development. As part of your care experience, you may expect to see specialists in endocrinology, urology, genetics, psychology, and/or plastic surgery who will collaborate on your care plan. The healthcare industry, we must remember, though it has done good, it is also feeding off of the knowledge of the tree of good and evil. And it does also contain much evil. Gender health, we also care for individuals whose gender identity is different from their sex at birth and who do not identify with the traditional definitions of male or female. In working with gender diverse patients, we utilize the standards of care developed by the World Professional Association for Transgender and so forth. And of course, it goes into hormonal therapy, including puberty blockers and gender affirming therapy and emotional health assessments for those interested in gender reassignment surgery. We offer surgical consultation and referrals. As part of your care experience, you may expect to see specialists in endocrinology, so forth, psychology, urology, plastic surgery, who will collaborate on your care plan. Now, that's not the answer. The answer is in his word. The answer is Yahushua HaMashiach. Now, that's not to say that in this fallen world, people have been messed up. It's very, very, very possible. I mean, we have test tube babies, we have medications, and our foods have all kinds of stuff in them. But the answer is Yahushua, turning to Yahushua, being compassionate, but not this way, not with transfiguring and in essence, possibly mutilating a child or a preteen or a teenager or a young adult that hasn't even fully developed yet and probably has never been told the truth of Yahweh's word. Another place is Children's Hospital of Philadelphia is committed to providing the highest quality gender affirming care to our LGBTQA+ patients and families. In light of recent events in other parts of our country, we stand with our colleagues at other children's hospitals and transgender and non-binary youth and their families across the globe. We invite you to call on your senators to pass the proposed expansions of the Equality Act. I talked on that in the past as a key way to ensure protection against state laws that target T and B youth. For more information, please see the Children's Hospital Associations. So it's very clear that Yahushua is coming soon. And, you know, I hate that their website link URL is chop.edu. Very sad, very sad. But that's why we're here. We are here to shine the light and the way to the narrow path that leads to life and not to the broad road that leads to death and destruction. In verse 28 of Leviticus 19, and do not make any cuttings in your flesh for the dead, nor put tattoo marks on you. I am Yahweh. In Mark 5:5, and continually night and day, he was in the mountains and in the tombs, crying out and cutting himself with stones. That was the demoniac that Yahushua healed. Revelation 13:16, and he causes all, both small and great, and rich and poor and free and slave, to be given a mark upon their right hand or upon their foreheads, and that no one should be able to buy or sell except he that has the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Revelation 14:11, and the smoke of their torture goes up forever and ever, and they have no rest day or night, those worshiping the beast and his image. Also, if anyone receives the mark of his name. So the tattoo trend has not been good. Tattoos were promoted as cool and popular trend, but are against the words of Yahweh. People have gotten tattoos in other languages that they cannot even read. They don't even know what truly was written on their flesh. No one knows if spells have been cast over the inks used to do the tattooing, or who the person is that is doing the tattoo. Today, another trend we have seen are breast implants and all other kinds of implants and piercings, mixing the iron and the clay. Our body is the temple of Yahweh. Just because a man has a white coat and an MD after his or her name doesn't usurp the power and authority of Yahweh. Today, many are ill because of implants, especially breast implant illness, BII. Take pause before inserting anything into your body or chopping anything off. The enemy always tries to normalize the abnormal, so that one day, whenever they are asked to receive the mark of the beast, some will look upon such as, oh, it's no big deal. An excerpt in Adam Clark's commentary reads, ancient writers abound with accounts of marks made on the face, arms, etc., in honor of different idols. And to this, the inspired penman alludes to in Revelation 13:16 that we just read, where false worshipers are represented as receiving in their hands and in their forehead the marks of the beast. These were called stigmatas among the Greeks, and to these Paul referred when he says, I bear about in my body the marks, stigmata, of Yahushua HaMashiach. Galatians 6:17, from now on, let no one trouble me, Paul said, for I bear in my body the scars of the Master Yahushua. So a stigma, from a primary word, stizo, stick, that is prick, a mark, incised, or punched for recognition of ownership. That is scar of service, a mark. And in Revelation, it expounds on that very same thing. And a third messenger followed them, saying with a loud voice, if anyone worships the beast and his image and receives his mark upon his forehead or upon his hand, he also shall drink of the wine of the wrath of Elohim, which is poured out undiluted into the cup of his wrath. And he shall be tortured with fire and sulfur before the set apart messengers and before the Lamb. And I saw like a sea of glass in Revelation 15:2 with fire, and those overcoming the beast and his image and his mark and the number of his name, standing on the sea of glass, holding harps of Elohim. 16:2 of Revelation, and the first went and poured out his bowl upon the earth, and an evil, wicked sore came upon the men, those having the mark of the beast and those worshiping the image. The sign of adultery was recorded in Numbers chapter 5, verse 22. And this water that causes the curse shall go into your inward parts and make your belly swell and your thigh waste away. Revelation 19:20, and the beast was seized, and with him the false prophet who worked signs in his presence, by which he led astray those who received the mark of the beast and those who worshiped his image. Revelation 24, and I saw thrones, and they sat on them, and judgment was given to them, and the lives of those who had been beheaded because of the witness they bore to Yahushua, and because of the word of Elohim, and who did not worship the beast nor its image, and did not receive his mark upon his forehead, upon their foreheads, or upon their hands. And they lived and reigned with Messiah for 1,000 years. So do not profane your daughter by making her a whore, so that the land does not whore, and the land becomes filled with wickedness. Guard my Sabbaths and reverence my set apart place. I am Yahweh. Do not turn to mediums and do not seek after spiritists to be defiled by them. I am Yahweh, your Elohim. Rise up before the gray-headed, and you shall favor the face of an old man, and shall fear your Elohim. I am Yahweh. And when a stranger sojourns with you in your land, do not oppress him. Let the stranger who dwells among you be to you as the native among you, and you shall love him as yourself. For you were strangers in the land of Mitzrayim. I am Yahweh, your Elohim. Do no unrighteousness in right ruling, in measurement of length and weight, or in measuring liquids. Have right scales, right weights, a right ephah, and a right hin. I am Yahweh, your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Egypt. And you shall guard all my laws and all my right rulings and do them. I am Yahweh. Luke 14, 13 and 14 reinforces how we should be. But when you give a feast, invite poor ones, crippled ones, lame ones, blind ones, and you shall be blessed, because they do not have to repay you, for you shall be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous. Give, and it shall be given to you, a good measure, pressed down and shaken together and running over, shall be put into your lap. For with the same measure with which you measure, it shall be measured back to you. And in 2 Corinthians chapter 9, and this, he who sows sparingly shall also reap sparingly, and he who sows on blessing shall also reap on blessing. Let each one give as he purposes in his heart, not of grief or of necessity, for Elohim loves a joyous giver. 1 John 3:17, but whoever has this world's goods and sees his brother in need and shuts up his tender affections from him, how does the love of Elohim stay in him? My little children, let us not love in word or in tongue, but in deed and in truth. John 2:15 and 16, and having made a whip of cords, he drove them all out of the set apart place with the sheep and the oxen, and poured out the money changers' coins and overturned the tables. And he said to those selling doves, take these away. Do not make the house of my father a house of merchandise. Matthew 21:13. And he said to them, it has been written, my house shall be called a house of prayer, but you have made it a den of robbers. I mean, Yahusha stood his ground when he needed to stand his ground. 1 Peter 4:17, because it is time for judgment to begin from the house of Elohim. And if firstly from us, what is the end of those who do not obey the good news of Elohim? 2 Corinthians 6:15. And what agreements has Messiah with Belial? Or what part does a believer have with an unbeliever? And what union has the dwelling place of Elohim with idols? For you are a dwelling place of the living Elohim, as Elohim has said, I shall dwell in them and walk among them, and I shall be their Elohim, and they shall be my people. And you shall guard all my laws and all my right rulings and do them. I am Yahweh. 1 John 3:22 through 24 reinforces that. And whatever we ask, we receive from him, because we guard his commands and do what is pleasing in his sight. And this is his command, that we should believe in the name of his son, Yahushua HaMashiach, and love one another as he gave us command. And the one guarding his command stays in him, and he in him. And by this we know that he stays in us, by the Spirit which he gave us. We live in the information age, and yet this world displays a vast moral depravity of knowing right from wrong. His word is the most important spiritual and informational resource, and has been pushed away by many, or merely acknowledged by others once a week. Then others have added darkness to the light of his word by blending in the doctrines of man. The highest court in America is a black mirror image of this debased mindset, having been infiltrated by the enemy's knowledge of the tree of good and evil. At some point, the Black Robe Regiment chose to rule the way of this wicked world and not the way of Yahweh. And the international scene is no different. The landscape is growing darker and darker and will usher in the spirits of the Antichrist and false prophet. We don't cease to pray for leaders, but we should also not turn a blind eye to all that is taking place. Yahusha didn't turn a blind eye to what was taking place around him. In this world of wheat and tares, you will know them only by the fruit they bear. There is another high court, so-called high court, developing under U.S. Public Law 102.14, advancing what is called their Noahide laws to all Goyim nation people. Though on the surface they use wording from Yahweh's commands, it is their numerous added subcategories that fester beneath this facade of so-called goodness, for their light is not Yahweh's light. Anytime Yahweh's commandments are added to or taken away from and blended with the doctrine and dogma of men, it is an abomination. I'm just going to read 2 paragraphs at the lower part of this screen. It says, on the 9th of Tevet, 5766 which equates to about 2005, 2006, representatives of groups of B'nai Noah, because their goal is to have anyone that they don't consider a Jew to be classified as a B'nai Noah. So on the 9th of Tevet, 5766, 2005, 2006, representatives of groups of B'nai Noah from the USA gathered for a foundational convention which took place in Jerusalem, in which they officially pledged in front of a Sanhedrin forum to observe the 7 laws of B'nai Noah, which they are commanded to keep. The need to accept the commandments of B'nai Noah in front of a Sanhedrin forum was enabled to satisfy the approaches by which it is not enough for a Gentile to accept by himself the obligation to the commandments, but rather it must be done in front of a Torah court. Obviously, the convention was preceded by a large amount of logistical arrangements, some of which included locating the groups of B'nai Noah across the USA and remaining in contact with the group's representatives with complete coordination with the other groups. The convention left a strong impression on the participants, and now the convention serves as a cornerstone for continual direction connection for the sake of quote unquote guidance and direction for groups of B'nai Noah across the USA. The Sanhedrin maintains electronic contact with B'nai Noah all over the world, a connection of halakhic question and answers, Jewish law questions and answers. The court for B'nai Noah of the Sanhedrin receives the halakhic questions. They receive them through the electronic transfer. They discuss them and reply to them. Thus, an important and fruitful so-called connection is maintained with the B'nai Noah, who find themselves an important and available halakhic source for answers on problems and subjects which concern them. So in essence, they're accessing Talmudic Babylonian law to give them guidance, and they're usurping the individual from asking Yahuwah, the Elohim of all creation. So it goes on to say this connection continues to expand and provides quote unquote real aid for widening the circle of questioners and those that are coming closer, quote unquote, to observance of the 7 commandments of B'nai Noah among the nations. So the enemy uses words and names like Noah, B'nai Noah, sons of Noah. They add to Yahweh's commandments in multiple subcategories that are not good at all, and can even be lethal. The Sanhedrin was reestablished in 2004. And they desired to be the international court system and replace the United Nations. Violation of their savagery, man-made laws within the satanic Babylonian Talmud demands decapitation based only by one witness for even speaking his name, Yahweh or Yahusha or Jesus the Messiah. Understanding that this reestablished Sanhedrin is continuously working behind the scenes may help us understand how believers may one day be dragged before the Sanhedrin spoken of in Matthew chapter 10, verse 17. Is that not what it said? But beware of men, for they shall deliver you up to whom? They shall deliver you up to Sanhedrins and flog you in their congregations. Just as in the days of Yahusha, the authorities in office under Rome turned the religious cases over to another so-called ruling body under a different court system, under to those that say they were Jews but were not. This video we're about to watch is part 1 of a previous series I did called The Hidden Sword, revealing the hidden Noahide laws encased in an inconspicuous sheath known as U.S. Education Day. I'm going to play this. I'm going to attempt to narrate this video and update it as we go along. It was previously just placed to music in the background, and it was just meant for people to read along, but I'm going to try to narrate it as we go. I know we're running long, but I'm going to move forward. So let's proceed. The Hidden Sword, Part 1, 4-part series. Our satanic enemy uses many weapons, but ultimately it will come down to the hidden sword. First, one must know who our enemy is and who it is not. Ephesians 6:12, for our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this world's darkness, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. These powers and spiritual forces hold the hidden sword as they lay in wait in the shadows. Make no mistake, it is the same enemy that our Messiah, Yahushua HaMashiach, faced. This enemy also uses many weapons, but it is the hidden sword unsheathed that swayed circumstances against Yahushua the Messiah. It was extremely clever. It was extremely lethal. The enemy still uses the same hidden sword prepared for believers and followers of Yeshua HaMashiach. What does the hidden sword look like in our day? Much like in Yahushua's day, he dealt with the doctrine and traditions of men mixed with his word. There is one hidden sword in particular I want to focus on today. The 7 Noahide laws made by man. The sheath that holds this hidden sword seemed totally harmless. Why else would 7 presidents of the USA take hold of this sword, and now it's been 8 presidents? Yes, you read correctly. Now a total of 8 US presidents with their corresponding Congress. Carter, Reagan, H.W. Bush, Clinton, Bush, Obama, Trump, and now Biden. We too shouldn't have been deceived by the sheath cloaking the sword, but it is not too late to sound the alarm to the brethren. After all, this hidden sword just celebrated now its 44th anniversary in 2022. And that's not all. Proclamations or the equivalent have been issued by the governors of all 50 states, and that's not all. Some 100 more city and local proclamations have been issued from Alameda, California to Stillwater, Washington, and El Paso, Texas. The sword, sheath, and fixment had to have been so ornate, so beautiful, so inviting to unify so many into taking grip of the handle. Why did these elected officials take hold and lead us into the snare of the hidden sword? It was stated that it would serve as a higher purpose for our youth. It would usher in peace among people. It would usher in unity and celebration. That sounds great, doesn't it? It was stated that it would be as innocent as Happy Mother's Day or Happy Father's Day. The sheath cloaking the hidden sword of man-made laws, the 7 Noahide laws, was declared as Education Day, now having its, now 44th year anniversary. Often boasted as the year of education, or should I say, re-educational programming. Sounds innocent, but it is potentially lethal and potentially deadly. And it eventually seeks to hold to account every tongue, tribe, people, and nation that proclaims Yahushua as their Messiah, their Savior, who observes his Sabbaths and holds fast to his covenant-confirming gospel message, but violates their man-made Talmudic, Babylonian 7 Noahide laws and their subcategories that go along with that. Their words are both a mixture of lies and truth, meant to deceive and use of power and control. Just like when Herod asked the Magi, "Go and search carefully for the child, and when you find him, report to me, that I too may go and worship him." For years, the enemy has used various weapons. They have been flashed in our face from chemtrails to wars and rumors. Weapons of mass distraction and sadly mass destruction, but most are not the hidden sword that Yahushua faced, as well as those that have been placed in prison or faced death due to religious and political persecution under man-made laws and or activist judges. You see, it is the hidden sword wielded behind all of these other weapons that is the most silent and dangerous. The hidden sword, like the 7 Noahide laws, create a snare to Yahweh's people, the set apart ones that stand true to him but differ from man-made imposed doctrine. In our day, the hidden sword, the 7 Noahide laws, encased in its sheath under the guise of Education Day, has been promoted patiently and meticulously by now 44 years. This strategy has infiltrated, assimilated, made unholy alliances, deceived, fought, and lied to obtain striking distance against those not committed to the doctrine of men. We have identified the enemy behind those who hold this view. It is the powers and spiritual forces that war through the flesh of men that have stole their souls from Satan. He used as weapons to forcefully take back the birthright that Esau sold to Jacob, the lynching too. Esau was a wicked man, but he possessed the evil spirit. Confusion of the enemy comes in at this point with the loose and multiple definitions of terms, like Jew, like Israel, Zionism, and Torah. These are the redefined terms the enemy specialty. For simplicity, and in order to be as many as possible, I will define these terms as biblical. Even the name of the Father and the Son has been changed in most biblical translations. This is why I have avoided using the name Jesus. One must understand that the enemy serves another Jesus, but they don't serve anyone close to the truer name of Yahusha, the son of Yahweh, the father of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The enemy is more against Hebraic versions of his name than the transliteration of his name to Jesus, which is very close to Zeus. For this reason, I attempt to use the most accurate names, his true name, and worshiping on the Sabbath instead of Sunday are triggers to the enemy. Noted in Catholic Music Network, the Vatican has reiterated a directive that the name of God revealed in the Tetragrammaton Yahweh is not pronounced in Catholic liturgy or in music. Catholics that worship should neither speak nor pronounce the name of God as Yahweh, citing the validity of Jewish and Christian practices. Yahweh not to be used in liturgy, songs, prayers, parties, events, sex. Who came in the likeness of flesh under oath. So why is that important? The cunningly evil enemy knows that Yahusha and his true followers keep Yahweh's covenant and do not lie. So Yahusha spoke the truth, then was judged by their man-made laws and the traditions of the elders and condemned to death on the charge of blasphemy. So the hidden sword of man-made laws and interpretations were drawn and implemented. Though we know Yahusha chose to lay down his life. So in our day, like in his day, this hidden sword of man-made laws, doctrines of the elders, mixed with his word, can be used to condemn the righteous. We too can be judged by fallen evil man, twisting doctrine, be placed under oath, and be struck with the hidden sword, declaring blasphemy. Under the hidden sword of the Noahide laws, sheathed in education ways, their appointed courts and judges could condemn those they call believing Gentiles, even if it's used by only one witness, only one, and that's not even biblical. So the enemy makes laws that go against Yahweh's covenant, against his followers keeping the Sabbath, against his followers praising his name, against his followers proclaiming to be Israel, born from above, by those being circumcised apart by the Holy Spirit, who are born from above. We are Israel. We will look more closely at these Noahide laws as education today in the continuity of this series. Together, we will define sin as good dealing in certain scriptures. Chapter 17. But beware of men, for they shall deliver you up to whom? Sanhedrins, and flog you in their congregations. And you shall be brought before governors and sovereigns for my sake, as a witness to them and to the nations. But when they deliver you up, do not worry about how or what you shall speak, for it shall be given to you in that very hour what you shall speak. On October 13th, 2004, the Sanhedrin Council of the Jewish nation was reconstituted for the first time in 1600 years. The ceremony took place in the Israeli town of Tiberias, located on the western shore of the Sea of Galilee. This was the site of the council's last meeting in the year 425 AD. Revelation 3:9, look at those who belong to the synagogue of Satan, who claim to be Jews but are liars and said, I will make them come and bow down to me, and will know that I love you. Because you have kept my command to endure with patience, I will also keep you from the hour of testing that is about to come upon the whole world, to test those who dwell on the earth. We will look at the Noahide laws in depth, but for now know the 7 Noahide laws, aka Education Day, are the commandments of men because they have multiple categories beneath them. They have been added to. Like the very sword he builds, hidden. Yes, hidden, just like tares are among the wheat. The enemy has infiltrated and mingled its seed among the wheat in every nation and among every people. The war is between the house of Jacob, Israel, and the house of Esau. Woe to those who seek deep to hide their counsel far from Yahweh, and their works are in the dark. They say, who sees us? Who knows us? Wheat and tares look identical until harvest time. Let both grow together until the harvest. At that time, I will tell the harvesters, first collect the wheat and tie them in bundles to be burned, then gather the wheat into my barn. You identify the hidden enemy by what they do, because they are cloaked in the earth suit, taking on many forms, and their color is red, blood red. Matthew 7:15, beware of false prophets. They come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravenous wolves. By their fruit you will recognize them. Are grapes gathered from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? Likewise, every good tree bears good fruit, but a bad tree bears bad fruit. You will know them by what they do. You ask Law 102:14. Noahide laws. March 20th, 1991. That's when at the time of the law. But the resolutions began with Jimmy Carter back in 1978. Now we're going to listen to a short excerpt from Israeli News Live with Yana, and I'll leave the full video link in the description section. She was at a conference, so the quality is not great, and you will not see all of the screens she displays, but she verbalizes them, so you will not need to. But again, the audio is not very good.
Rabbi Yisrael Ariel in 2015, he's a Temple Mount rabbi, and he's speaking to a group of Jews there. He's talking about Noahide laws and how they are going to deal with people, you know, and what. And I want you to listen to it, because I will talk to you a little bit about Oded Yinon plan and our foreign policy in United States and how they kind of go together, and that way you will understand what our foreign policies are in the United States, where they come from, who controls them, and what is United States used for. All right? Okay, so this is Rabbi Yisrael Ariel. He speaks in Hebrew. Let's see. Now it is long, so I'll stop it after a few minutes. And I'll stop it and read you subtitles. He speaks Hebrew, so you wouldn't understand anyway, but the subtitles, can you see? What? You know that Israel has Sanhedrin. You know, in 2004 it was formed. Okay, so does it remind you, 2,000 years ago, when our Messiah will come back to Israel, the situation will be identical. It will be the same. All right, and the Sanhedrin is actually gaining a lot of power and a lot of money from Israeli government. Okay, so keep that in mind. Okay, should I be stopping it? Can you read quickly? As we said, we are dealing with Jewish people. What power does Sanhedrin have with respect to other nations of the world? Does it have any power? Okay, we might think it doesn't, and it might not be visible right now, and it might still not have the power. And a lot of people will think, oh, it will never have a power, it's just there and there's no power. No, we are progressing in our geopolitical system when Sanhedrin will have a lot of power. In fact, if you watch the latest news from Sanhedrin, Sanhedrin wants to replace United Nations. There is a call by major rabbis, and they're influencing a lot of leaders of all nations. They want to get rid of United Nations and have a Sanhedrin International Court. And I want to tell you, Vatican is heavily involved. Vatican and Sanhedrin are like this. They're friends, best friends. Okay? So what power has Sanhedrin? Even though he's now, he's just saying what power does Sanhedrin have? This is the name of Maimonides. Maimonides is a book in a Talmud. Talmud has a lot of names of books, like Bible has books. Okay, Maimonides is a book in a Talmud. Now, he says, this is what Torah commanded us, what Moses commanded us from the mouth of the mighty God. When he says the word Torah, he means the Talmud. He's speaking Talmud. Now he's quoting Tanakh. Okay, I want you to know, he quoted, said Torah, right? Then he was saying Deuteronomy, but then he goes right back to Maimonides, because this is the way they do it. They say, okay, we cannot understand the Tanakh without our oral law. So how did the Maimonides understand it? What did the Maimonides say about the power of Sanhedrin? Okay, now he says, what is meant by peace? Remember peace and security. Peace and security. When they speak about peace, this is what they want. They want you to follow the 7 Noahide laws. And I don't know if I will get to this later or not, but 7 Noahide laws have passed in our legal system already, and they have passed in United Nations system. And Pope has signed up for the 7 Noahide laws. And you might not know what it is yet, or how is it going to play out, but I will try to explain. Okay, so he says, what's meant by peace? By Maimonides in the Talmud, Maimonides says they must agree to follow 7 Noahide laws, whether it's be Pope or Obama or any nation. Okay? So why do you call for war? Stay home. Why go to war? What did he say? Because it's a mitzvah. War is a mitzvah. It's a commandment. Is war a commandment? It's a commandment of the Talmud. Whoever doesn't sign up to 7 Noahide war laws, we go to war with them. Okay? Just remember. There is a commandment to conquer the land of Israel. Remember that. Sanction war. Did King David ask the Sanhedrin anything? Okay, well, they believe King David would ask the Sanhedrin. Okay? Now, may I embark on a war with northern Syria in Aleppo? Notice the Talmud tells them King David asked Sanhedrin for everything. Did you know that everything King David did was sanctioned by High Court of Sanhedrin? Ooh, that's a lie. Wow, that's in the Talmud. Wow. I thought that he was a man of God. Now listen. In Israel, you take a person, put him on trial. Okay. Will you follow 7 Noahide laws? If yes, we'll let you live. If not, first we kill all their males by sword, and you only leave the women. Okay, they must agree to follow 7 laws. Okay, I want you to remember this, how they think and what they're teaching in yeshivas and among themselves, and what their halakha is, because this is halakha. This is their law. Okay, okay.
Therefore, having girded up the loins of your mind, be sober, set your expectation perfectly upon the favor that is to be brought to you at the revelation of Yahushua Messiah, as obedient children, not conforming yourselves to the former lust in your ignorance. Instead, as the one who called you is set apart, so you also should become set apart in all behavior. Because it has been written, be set apart, for I am set apart.